I thought I was an orphan, my parents dead in a car crash. But then a call changed everything. A dying Marine general claiming to be my father, telling me my life was a lie. My name, my past, even my survival, it was all part of a secret they fought to hide. And now, everyone who was supposed to protect me is trying to kill me. I don't know who to trust. But one thing, for sure, I will uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Before we dive and subscribe the channel. They say truth can hit like shrapnel. For me, it came on a Tuesday afternoon, when a stranger called and asked, "Is this Captain Lee Monroe?" "Yeah, that's me, Marine pilot, stationed in San Diego." I was halfway through a maintenance checklist when his voice cracked through the radio static of my mind. "This is Attorney Michael Grant. I represent Admiral Thomas Reynolds. He says he's your father, and he's dying." I laughed, then I stopped, because he didn't sound like a scammer. He sounded tired, old, the kind of tired that comes from carrying secrets too long. My father, as far as I knew, died in a drunk driving accident when I was 4. That's what my foster file said. That's what every birthday candle wished against. But the way he said your father, it hit somewhere deep, a place I didn't even know I still had locked. "Ma'am," he continued gently, "he asked for you by name. Full name, Lee Grace Monroe. He knows things only family would." My breath froze. Grace. No one knew my middle name, not even my commanding officer. I hung up before my voice cracked. For the next 3 nights, sleep felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. I kept replaying that call, his calm tone, that name, the ache behind it. I told myself it didn't matter, that I didn't need closure. But the truth, I was lying to myself harder than anyone ever had. By Thursday, I was sitting behind the wheel of a rental car outside a massive stone house in Virginia. White pillars, military flags, and too much silence. The kind of house that smells like old metals and unspoken apologies. The lawyer met me at the door. "He's upstairs," he said. I climbed the steps, each one heavier than the last. The room smelled like antiseptic and memories. Machines beeped softly beside a frail man wearing a navy blanket over his knees. He turned when he heard me. And smiled. "Lee," he whispered, as if saying my name was something sacred. I stood frozen. My training said don't show weakness. My heart said run. Instead, I just stared. He nodded slowly, tears gathering like he hadn't let them fall in decades. "You look like your mother," he said, voice trembling. "My what?" I shot back. He smiled through pain. "You've always had her eyes." Something in me cracked, the kind of crack you don't patch with logic. He coughed hard, then motioned to the nightstand. "There's a letter. It explains everything. Why I had to disappear. Why you had to believe you were alone." The air felt thick. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the words died on my tongue. He reached for my hand with a strength that didn't belong to a dying man. "You deserved a life without enemies. I gave you that, even if it meant you hated me." I yanked my hand back. "You don't get to show up 30 years later and call that love," I said, the words tasting like rust. He just smiled sadly. "One day you'll understand." I turned to leave. But before I reached the door, he called out softly, "Lee, the truth you think you know, it's a cover story." I froze. "Check the letter," he whispered, "then decide if you still hate me." Outside, the sky was bruised purple, rain starting to fall. I sat in my car staring at the envelope in my hand. Inside it, a truth waited, one that could burn everything I'd built. My thumb brushed the seal. I almost opened it, almost. But something told me, once I read it there, be no going back. And that's when the first tear finally fell. The envelope felt heavier than it should have. Not in weight, just in the way guilt sometimes weighs more than gravity. I stared at it like it might explode. The paper was thick, old. My name, Lee, written in a handwriting that trembled but tried not to. I tore it open before courage had time to run away. Inside, 2 things. A faded photo of a woman in uniform holding a baby. Me. And a single-page letter, yellowed at the edges. "My dearest Lee," it began. If you're reading this, it means I couldn't tell you face to face. What I did to protect you was unforgivable, but necessary. I felt my chest tighten. The words looked like they were written through tears. He wrote about something called Operation Iron Veil, a covert mission gone wrong in 1996. A group of Marines ambushed, families threatened, names erased. My death, apparently, had been staged, my identity rewritten under federal protection. He wrote, I made them erase you from the record to keep you safe. You grew up believing a lie because the truth would have killed you. My hand shook so bad I could barely read the rest. He mentioned my mother, Lieutenant Commander Natalie Monroe. Not some faceless woman in a file, but a naval intelligence officer who died trying to stop that same operation from being exposed. He ended it simply. I couldn't save her, but I saved you. Please forgive me for surviving. The room spun. I wanted to laugh, scream, throw something. All those years of therapy, the nightmares, the abandonment, I'd blamed myself for being unlovable, unworthy. Turns out, I'd been invisible on purpose. I looked at the photo again. My mom's smile, the way she held me like the whole world fit in her arms. I touched the picture, tracing her outline like maybe I could feel her warmth through time. Then something caught my eye, tiny writing on the back. If she ever asks why, show her the locket. The locket. I'd seen it earlier, on the Admiral's bedside table. Silver scratched with initials NM carved in tiny script. I drove back to the house, like my heart was on fire. The front door was unlocked. Upstairs, the air buzzed with that sterile hospital silence. He was awake, sitting up this time, like he'd been waiting for me. You read it, he said softly. I nodded, the words stuck in my throat. I don't want your apology, I snapped. I want the truth. He exhaled slowly. Then you're ready. He opened a drawer beside the bed and pulled out the locket. Inside, 2 miniature photos, him in uniform, Mom smiling beside him. But behind the photos was something else, a micro SD card, barely visible. What's on this? I asked. He met my eyes. Proof. My pulse hammered. Proof of what? He hesitated. That your mother's death wasn't an accident. My hands went cold. The letter, the fake death, the threats, it all blurred into one terrifying possibility. He coughed hard, voice breaking. They silenced her to bury Iron Veil. I kept you hidden to stop them from finishing what they started. The machines beeped faster. His breathing grew shallow. I reached for him instinctively, years of anger suddenly feeling too small for the room. Who's they? I demanded. He tried to answer, but the words got lost somewhere between air and regret. Then the monitor flatlined. I stood there frozen. My heart refused to move, my mind refused to believe. For a second, it felt like the whole house went silent to honor him. And in that silence, I realized the only man who knew the truth about my life just took it to his grave. I dropped to my knees beside him. Tears hit the floor like confession drops. The locket, the photo, the letter, they suddenly weren't just relics, they were clues. I wiped my face, whispering to the man who had hidden me from the world, "You don't get to leave me with more questions." Then I clenched the microchip in my palm. If he wouldn't give me answers, I'd find them myself. I sat on the edge of the Admiral's bed, staring at the tiny black microchip in my palm like it was a ticking time bomb. One wrong move, and maybe it could destroy everything, or someone could destroy me for holding it. My mind was racing. Operation Iron Veil, my mother, my death, and now this chip. Whoever had erased me from history didn't just want secrets, they wanted power, and I held the key. I drove back to my apartment in Washington, D.C., heart pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. Every streetlight felt like a watchful eye. Every passerby could be someone from the past, someone sent to finish what had started decades ago. Once inside, I locked the door, triple-checked the windows, and plugged the chip into my laptop. The screen flickered. Files, hundreds of them, organized by date, name, and operation code. Names I recognized from history books. Missions I'd only heard about in passing. And then a folder labeled Monroe Family. I opened it. Files, photographs, reports. Video clips of men in dark uniforms watching my mother from afar. Detailed documents showing her movements the night she died. And then a final, chilling note in digital text. We warned her. She didn't listen. Neither will the child. I froze. The child was me. Somewhere deep inside, a laugh bubbled up. Nervous, raw, ha-ha. So that's why my childhood felt like someone was always watching. Like shadows followed me. Like whispers tailed my footsteps. I scrolled faster. There it was, a hidden video file dated the night my mother died. Hands shaking, I clicked play. Her face appeared on screen. Natalie Monroe, alive, talking to someone off camera. My daughter must be protected, even if it kills me, she said, voice breaking. Thomas will know what to do. Lee will survive no matter what. My chest constricted. She tried to save me. She loved me more than I could ever understand. Then the camera shifted. Shadows moved. Men in suits, faces hidden. They argued, plans whispered. One phrase repeated over and over. The girl must disappear. The operation must remain secret. Sigh, I'd been living a lie my entire life. The life I thought was normal was fabricated. Carefully, meticulously constructed to hide me from danger. And my father, he wasn't just absent. He was fighting a war I never knew I was a part of. All those letters, the locket, the medals, it was his way of keeping me alive. But then I noticed something else on the chip. A new folder labeled, Current Threats 2025. I clicked it, my stomach dropped, photos of people I knew, people I trusted. Friends, colleagues, even some of my fellow Marines. Notes beside them, potential threat to the operation. Weeping, my pulse raced. They hadn't stopped. They were still out there, watching, waiting. And now, by holding this chip, I had become the center of a game I didn't even know existed. I slammed the laptop shut. My apartment felt smaller, suffocating. I couldn't breathe. Haha, the joke was on me. Or maybe life had just handed me a lifetime of jokes I wasn't ready to hear. I clenched the locket in one hand, the chip in the other. I whispered to the empty room, Okay, Mom, Dad, whatever you left me, I'm ready. I'll finish what you started. And in that moment, a notification pinged on my phone. A text from an unknown number. We see you have it. Don't make this harder than it has to be. My fingers froze, my heart skipped, my blood ran cold. The past wasn't just alive, it was hunting me. The city lights of DC blurred past the windshield as I sped down the highway. Every honk, every siren, every passing car felt like a countdown. Someone was watching. I could feel it in my bones. The microchip and the locket rested side by side on the passenger seat. One held secrets of the past, the other a promise of protection. I couldn't decide which was heavier. I parked near an old warehouse by the Potomac River, the kind of place movies make bad things happen. I needed answers, and I had only one person who could give them, my mother's old colleague, Captain Jonah Blake. He had served with her in intelligence, knew the operation, and had survived the ambush that claimed her life. I pushed open the rusty door, expecting it to creak. Instead, it swung open silently. The shadows inside swallowed me. My heart raced. Haha, I sounded like a scared teenager, not a Marine. Lee, a voice called. I spun. Jonah emerged, older, grayer, but eyes sharp as a hawk's. Relief hit me first, then a surge of adrenaline. He was alive, and he had answers. You've got the chip, he said without preamble. They're after it. They've been watching you since you got it. My stomach sank. Who is they? Jonah gestured to a chair. I sat, gripping the locket like a lifeline. The people who killed your mother, erased your existence, and made your father vanish from your life, they're still out there. And Lee, he paused, eyes dark. They want you gone too. Sigh, of course. Nothing in my life was ever simple. Not my training, not my missions, not even my name. Every safe moment had been a lie. I handed him the microchip. Tell me everything. Jonah's hands trembled slightly. Iron Veil was bigger than we knew. Your mother discovered corruption inside the Pentagon. High-level officials who didn't just want secrecy, they wanted total control. She tried to protect her family. That's why your death was faked. Your father hid you, and now, his gaze hardened, they're still trying to cover it up. I laughed nervously, a hollow sound. So my whole life was just a chess piece. Jonah nodded. Not just a piece, the queen. They underestimated her love and his sacrifice, but now it's your turn to play. A rush of fear and exhilaration flooded me. Weeping. The weight of my parents' courage, their loss, and their choices hit me all at once. Haha, my life had been scripted by ghosts, and now the pen was in my hand. I opened the folder on the laptop Jonah brought. Photos, names, operational plans, people I trusted. Every file screamed danger. Every frame whispered betrayal. Then a noise outside, a soft shuffle. My gut froze. We weren't alone. Shadows moved past the broken windows. "Hide the chip," Jonah hissed. I stuffed it into my boot. He grabbed a concealed pistol. They've been patient, but patience doesn't last forever. We crouched as the intruders entered. Men in dark suits, faces covered, moving like predators. My pulse thundered. Every instinct screamed fight or die. Then one of them paused, looked right at me. Something inside me ignited, a fire I hadn't felt since flight school. Not fear, not panic, determination. We couldn't let them get the chip. We couldn't let my parents' sacrifice be erased. And just like that, the warehouse erupted into chaos. Gunshots echoed, glass shattered. I dove for cover, Jonah by my side. Each second stretched like a lifetime. Each heartbeat screamed, this is what survival feels like. And in the middle of it all, I realized I was no longer just a Marine. I was the last guardian of a legacy that had fought to protect me my entire life. The warehouse was a mess. Smoke from shattered glass mingled with the metallic smell of blood, and my heart was still hammering like it wanted to escape my chest. Jonah and I crouched behind overturned crates, trying to catch our breath, listening to the footsteps of the intruders fade into the shadows. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. I pulled the microchip from my boot, eyes scanning the digital folder again. The names, the faces, the operations, it was more than just proof of my parents' past. It was a roadmap of betrayal, and I realized with a sickening twist, some of the people I'd trusted most were listed as current threats. My own team, my fellow Marines, even some mentors I'd considered family. I sank against the crate. Haha, the life I thought I had, built on loyalty, courage, and trust, it had been a lie. "Lee," Jonah said softly, crouching beside me, "you need to understand they aren't just enemies. Some of them think they're doing the right thing. They want to protect the system. They think the truth will destroy more than it saves." Sigh, of course. The good guys weren't all good. My chest tightened as the weight of this realization settled like a stone in my stomach. I looked down at the locket, tracing the tiny photo of my mother and father. They had given everything, love, life, safety, so that I could survive. And here I was, surrounded by lies, unsure of who to trust, fighting shadows that wore familiar faces. Jonah pulled out a map from his backpack. Red pins, black lines, and dates sprawled across it. "This is where they're meeting next," he said. "Tonight, and Lee, they're expecting someone like you to come." I blinked. Me, why would they? He shook his head. "They don't know who you really are, but they'll know soon. And if you're not careful, they'll try to take the chip, or worse, take you." I felt it then. The fear, the anger, the helplessness all at once. Weeping quietly, I swallowed hard. I had survived combat, survived storms in the Pacific, survived death on missions nobody would ever hear about. But now I was fighting a war I couldn't predict, against enemies disguised as friends. We made a plan, quiet, fast, the kind that didn't leave room for hesitation. My training kicked in, calculating, planning, anticipating. But my emotions, they were still a wild storm inside me. Rage, betrayal, love for the parents I'd barely known, and the burning need for answers. By midnight, we were in the shadows of an abandoned Navy dockyard. Ships creaked in the wind, fog rolling across the water like spirits of the past watching me. Every step I took was careful, but every nerve in my body screamed. Then I saw him, Lieutenant Mark Harris, my friend, someone I had trusted with my life on 3 missions. And there he was, standing near a crate, speaking quietly into a secure comm. The words cut through my blood like ice. Make sure she never gets the chip. She can't know, not yet. Orders from the top. I froze, haha, my own brother in arms, my comrade, my friend, and he was on the other side. Jonah's hand tightened on my shoulder. Lee, it's worse than we thought. I nodded, swallowing a scream. My life wasn't just at risk. The truth, the legacy my parents had died protecting, was in my hands, and if I failed, everything would be lost. I took a deep breath, the cold wind biting my face. Then we make sure we survive the night and we get the truth. Because now I realized something fierce. Betrayal hurt the most when it came from the people you loved. And that pain, that fire, was going to be my weapon. Fog clung to the docks like a living thing, swallowing shadows and muffling every sound except our footsteps. I gripped the microchip like it was my lifeline, my parents' sacrifices pressing into my palm through the cold metal of the locket. Jonah moved beside me, silent but alert, like a shadow I could trust. Stay close, he whispered. Once we reach the crate, everything changes. I nodded, my chest tight. Fear, anger, grief, they all tangled together in a storm that left me dizzy. Weaving through the mist, I could see the figures ahead. Harris and two others, voices low, hands moving with precision over security devices. And then it hit me. This was no ordinary mission. This was personal. Every file, every photo, every threat, they weren't just about me or my parents. They were about the truth, about exposing corruption that could ruin lives, families, careers. And here I was, right in the middle of it. I swallowed hard. Haha, the thought of being betrayed by my friend, by someone I trusted with my life, still stung like a fresh wound. I wanted to scream, to run, to throw the chip into the water and disappear forever. But that wasn't me. Never had been. I signaled to Jonah. We split, shadows moving like ghosts. My heart pounded so loud I thought it might give us away. Every step closer to the crate was a step deeper into danger. And then I saw it, the crate. Inside, another file labeled Monroe Operation Archive. My parents' work, my life, the secrets they had died protecting. And Harris was guarding it, unaware we were watching from above. I froze. The betrayal settled deep in my chest, cold and heavy. But then Jonah whispered, "Go, you can do this." I took a breath. Step by step, I moved closer, adrenaline mixing with grief and rage. My hands found the crate, and with a careful flick, I opened it. Inside were documents, photos, and my mother's journal. I ran my fingers over the worn leather cover. Every entry, every note, every emotion my mother had hidden, it was all here. And then Harris turned. His eyes widened for a split second, recognition, shock, maybe guilt, but it was gone in a heartbeat. He lunged. Time slowed. I ducked, rolled, and slammed into the crate, scattering papers into the fog. Jonah tackled the other intruder. Gunshots rang out, echoing across the water like thunder. My mind screamed, "Survive, survive, survive." Harris lunged again. I blocked him, heart racing, sweat mixing with rain. We grappled in the fog, the microchip slipping dangerously close to the edge of the crate. A whimper escaped me, half fear, half determination. Haha, I would not let this be the end. And then I remembered my mother's words. "Lee, you must survive. You must finish this." Channeling every ounce of strength, I twisted, shoved Harris backward, and snatched the chip. He stumbled, cursing, disappearing into the mist. I sank to my knees, gasping, Jonah beside me, chest heaving. The microchip was safe. My parents' legacy, our truth, was intact for now. But the danger wasn't over. It never would be, not until the full story was revealed. I looked out at the foggy water, tears mixed with rain, weeping. All my parents' lives, their sacrifices, their secrets, they were all on me now, and I couldn't fail. The city lights of DC were blurred by rain and adrenaline. Every street corner felt alive, as if the shadows themselves were moving just to watch me fail. The microchip burned a hole in my jacket pocket, a reminder of everything my parents had died protecting, and everything I still didn't know. Jonah stayed close, eyes scanning every darkened alley. They know we took the chip, he whispered. It's only a matter of time before they come for us. I nodded, trying to steady my breathing. My chest felt tight, not from running, but from rage. Betrayal had a face. Lieutenant Harris, my friend, my brother-in-arms. And now every name on that microchip whispered threats I couldn't ignore. Haha, the life I'd believed in, the trust I'd given freely, it was all a lie. We ducked into an abandoned parking garage, shadows folding around us. I pulled the locket from my neck and held it tight. My mother, my father, their sacrifices, their love, their silence, it all surged through me like fire. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated, then opened the message. You're too close, back off or she dies. R. R, the same initials I'd seen in one of my mother's final files. Someone in the highest ranks. Someone still alive. Someone pulling strings from behind the curtain. Sigh, of course. The past wasn't done with me yet. Jonah crouched beside me. We need a plan. They've got surveillance everywhere. If we move now, we risk being trapped. I clenched my fists. Then we fight. No more running. I've survived storms, ambushes, betrayals, and I'm not stopping now. We traced the coordinates on the chip to a warehouse near the waterfront, a place my mother had used for clandestine meetings. If we could get inside, maybe we could finally understand the operation she had died protecting. Maybe we could finally expose the truth. The fog thickened as we approached, cold rain stinging our faces. Haha, my heart was pounding like a drum. Every step forward felt like a gamble with death. We slipped inside. The warehouse was silent, eerie. Crates stacked high, shadows stretching across the walls, and then movement. Harris stepped out from behind a crate, gun trained on us. I warned you, Lee, he said. His voice cracked, not with anger, but regret. You shouldn't have taken this far. You don't understand what you're doing. I leveled my gaze at him, weeping. Betrayal hurt more than any physical wound. I understand more than you think, I said, voice trembling but strong. I understand that my parents fought, bled, and died for this truth, and I'm not letting you bury it. He hesitated, then slowly, almost painfully, lowered his weapon. You're reckless, he muttered, just like her. My pulse raced. The tension, the emotions, the fury, it all collided in that frozen moment. Jonah moved beside me, hands ready but silent. Then a sound behind us, footsteps precise, controlled. R, the orchestrator. The one who had threatened me controlled the events from the shadows, and now he was here. I swallowed hard. Haha, fear, anger, grief, determination. All of it rolled into one. It ends tonight, I whispered to myself, gripping the microchip like it was the last tether to my parents' memory. Jonah nodded. Let's finish this. The air was electric. Every shadow, every secret, every betrayal was converging in that one warehouse. And I realized, whatever happened next, there would be no turning back. The warehouse smelled like rain, rust, and secrets. Every crate seemed alive, every shadow a lurking threat. My heartbeat was deafening, the microchip pressed against my palm like it carried the weight of my parents' souls. R stepped from the shadows, a tall figure, face half hidden in the dim light, eyes cold and calculating. The orchestrator of everything. Every betrayal, every secret, every risk. And now, finally face to face. You shouldn't have come, Lee, he said, voice low but lethal. This isn't your fight, it's never been yours. I stepped forward, fury mingling with grief. It is my fight. My parents died protecting this truth, and I'm not letting you erase them, or me any longer. Haha, my voice cracked, but it carried steel. Every betrayal, every sleepless night, every ounce of fear, it all came crashing into that one moment. R smiled, sharp, almost mocking. You think you're ready? You have no idea what you're holding. I lifted the microchip. I do, and I'm not afraid anymore. A figure moved behind him, Harris, my former friend, his gun trembling in his hands. Sigh, regret etched into every line of his face. Lee, I never wanted it to be this way, but you forced our hand. I shook my head. You made choices, now I make mine. Jonah flanked me silently, weapon ready, but eyes betraying pride. Pride for the girl who had grown from confusion and betrayal into a force of courage. R laughed, low and cruel. Courage won't save you. But then something shifted. The crates, the shadows, the microchip, it all became a battlefield of strategy, fear, and raw emotion. I lunged forward, adrenaline taking over, heart pounding with every memory of my mother, my father, my past. Shots rang out. Glass shattered. Harris hesitated, then turned on R in the chaos. Jonah tackled the mastermind to the ground. I grabbed the microchip and ripped open R's files. There it was, proof of every lie, every operation, every betrayal. Weeping, all my parents' sacrifices, their love, their courage, it all became tangible. And I realized, the truth wasn't just power, it was freedom. R struggled, gasping. You don't understand the world. I pressed the microchip into my jacket. I understand perfectly. The world deserves the truth, and I will make sure everyone knows it. The sirens started wailing in the distance. The authorities, alerted by Jonah earlier, were arriving. R's reign was over. The shadows that had haunted my life were finally being exposed. I sank against a crate, chest heaving, rain from the broken skylight dripping down my face, weeping quietly. I clutched the locket and the microchip. Oh, the weight of the past was finally lifting. Harris, kneeling beside me, whispered, You did it. You survived, you finished it. I looked at him, tears and rain mingling. We finished it together, but this is just the beginning. Because the truth, once unleashed, couldn't be silenced again. And I, Lee, was finally free to claim it. The morning sun broke over the Potomac, cutting through the fog like a promise. The warehouse, now a crime scene, was quiet except for the distant hum of sirens and the occasional splash of rainwater. I stood at the edge, holding the microchip and the locket, symbols of a past I had fought tooth and nail to understand. We had exposed the puppeteer. The corruption, the betrayals, the lies, they were all coming to light. My parents' sacrifices were no longer hidden, their courage no longer unsung. And somehow I survived. Haha, I actually survived it all. Jonah stood beside me, silent but proud. You did more than survive, Lee. You carried their legacy. I exhaled, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. Every lie, every betrayal, every sleepless night, it had led to this. And yet, the journey wasn't just about vengeance or uncovering secrets. It was about understanding, forgiveness, and choosing what to do with the truth. Weeks later, I visited the Naval Memorial, clutching the locket. My parents' names were etched into history, not just as soldiers, but as protectors, as guardians, as parents who had given everything so their child could live. I knelt, whispering a promise I had carried in my heart all these years. I will live, Mom. I will honor you, Dad. I won't let your sacrifices be forgotten. The microchip had become more than evidence. It became a tool for change. I shared it with the authorities, ensuring that the truth would be documented, preserved, and used to prevent others from suffering the way my family did. The names, the operations, the lessons, they were no longer secrets. And then I turned to a new mission. The orphanage where I had spent a brief part of my childhood, long abandoned, had become a center for children affected by war and loss. With the resources my father left behind and the scholarship program he had secretly funded, I could offer hope, protection, and education to those who had no one. Standing in the sunlight, watching children run through the courtyard, laughing and carefree, I felt a mix of awe and quiet joy. The weight of the past was still there, but it no longer chained me. I began public speaking, sharing my story with young Marines and civilians alike. Not for glory, not for fame, but for truth, for resilience, for the courage to confront life's shadows. I spoke about betrayal, about loss, about the sacrifices hidden behind medals and honors. And I spoke about forgiveness, how it wasn't weakness but a strength stronger than any weapon. At night, I'd sit by the memorial, writing letters to my parents, sharing the victories, the small moments of joy, and the children whose lives were being changed because of their courage. And finally, I realized something profound. Courage wasn't just about surviving ambushes, espionage, or betrayal. It was about living with the truth, embracing it, and transforming pain into hope. The shadows of my past were still part of me, but they no longer controlled me. The locket rested against my heart, a reminder of love, sacrifice, and enduring legacy. The microchip had unveiled a hidden world, but it was up to me to decide what kind of life I would build in its light. And I chose one of courage, of truth, and of legacy. Because some battles aren't fought with bullets, they're fought with honesty, forgiveness, and the bravery to carry the past into a better future. Even when betrayal cuts deepest, even when secrets haunt every step, resilience, courage, and the choice to forgive can transform pain into purpose. Lee's journey proves that the greatest legacy isn't medals or accolades. It's truth, love, and the courage to keep moving forward. If you like the story of Lee, subscribe the channel for more emotional story.